Hey everybody, this is a quick video on this reinforcing mesh, which has been really fantastic. I've been using it. It's a remesh or reinforcing mesh. It is a heavy gauge wire mesh that I've been using as a system of trellises here on my front yard raised bed vegetable garden. And this whole thing is 10 feet across, left to right, and it's 5 feet tall, top to bottom, and it has these, and I think it's like a 6 gauge is the strength, I believe, on the wire gauge itself, and then it has the holes in it which are 6 inches square, essentially, which is terrific because you can then reach through and grab stuff as you need it to to pull out your tomatoes or other things. And this has been fantastic here on my front yard raised bed garden, because it used to be that as my tomato plants, and I've pulled most of my stuff down, it's late October here already, but as my tomato plants and other things would be growing up, I would be constantly using bamboo poles and other things to fasten them up. But this year has been the easiest ever, because for about $14 or $15 per panel for this wire gauge mesh, I just take a panel that's 10 feet across and lean it up against the fence, and I haven't even had to fasten it, and just the weight of it is strong enough that everything has grown up. And even when we had a hurricane actually come through New Jersey this summer, my tomatoes and everything stayed up nice and well. Sometimes I do use a little bit of string or twine to hold things up. I have some basil here that I'm letting go to seed so I can collect the seeds, and some marigolds here. But what I wanted to show for purposes of, and nasturtium, for purposes of this video, is just the idea that, little tip for you. You can see right here at the end of the wire gauge, it doesn't end at a flat piece. It ends at these projections that come out about maybe 6 inches or so. And right here, these ends can really slice up your skin, as I've learned. So just as I would be reaching in to grab a cantaloupe or a watermelon or something that would be growing, or some peppers on my lawn, what would happen would be that and I know the shadows here are a little funky, but what would happen would be that the stuff would, this edge would scrape against my skin, and I was getting all of these slash marks on my on my forearms, and I probably looked like I was some kind of a self-mutilator or something. I'm sure my family, friends, and coworkers were probably thinking about starting an intervention. So I decided I had to do something to sort of cap these off, and I'll show you a couple of ideas that I had. One was, these little tips that you put on the end of the wire endings when you're making, when you're doing an installation for closets. I had a few of these, but they were too loose and those were falling off. And I also looked at using corks from wine bottles and putting those on the end. And that works okay, although, so it does keep you from getting scraped up. But if you think about it, there are, I guess, 11 on each side, so 22 of these on every panel, and I had about a half a dozen, panels. So my wife and I would have needed to drink a lot of bottles of wine this summer to get all of those. I had other things with a foam, this thing is some kind of a foam tip. Basically, the general idea, I would say, is look when you're gardening at what do you have. Things that otherwise might be garbage, like a cork off a bottle, or I have a relative that uses needles for medication, and the needles come with a little tip on the end of them. I'll show you here. So the needles come with that, and there is a way you could stick that onto the end, and again, that's better to scrape against that than against this rusty metal. However, those didn't quite turn out to be quite the right size to stay on as well as I might have liked. As they got bumped, those would fall off. You can also look at if you have a kid or neighbor who uses straws from like drinkable yogurts or any different things, I kind of found something similar to that, and found you want to get something that is strong enough or tight enough of a fit that it's not just going to come falling off on its own, and then there you go. So I don't know what's going to work for you. These things worked for me, but really the point, more important than that, the point being, in gardening, a lot of times you'll look around, look at things that you'll be throwing out, or your neighbors or friends might be throwing out, and they might be the perfect thing that you need for your garden. I just did want to make this follow-up because I had an earlier video talking about how fantastic these remesh, these are typically used in construction sites for pouring concrete. You put one of these down to help reinforce, it's a reinforcing mesh for concrete. But you can get them at construction places. They're really cheap. They're a fantastic trellis, I have found. I did want to add one follow-up tip to, spend a couple of minutes to pop something on the edges here, so that you don't end up with arms or hands that are all looking self-mutilated. All right, that's all for now. Happy gardening.